You know what that sound means? It's another episode of Game for a Movie where we ask, are you game for a movie? My name is Mike. I'll be your host for this final episode of Spoopy Season. Yes, always I try to, during the month of October, try to give you as many bad horror movies as I can, because let's face it, there's a million of them. This year, I am very proud that I am going to be able to give you 4 episodes, and it didn't come without its share of problems. Like, it was a little tough to get all of these out, but at the same time, I'm happy to do so for you, the listener. Thank you for listening and tuning in. The 4th movie of Spoopy Season is going to have to wait. As always, we start with what are we drinking? This time, so my in-laws were in town helping us with the new baby and everything like that. And whenever they come to town, most of the time they drive. And when they do, of course, they bring me some beer from Cincinnati. This is Truth, an IPA from Rhinegeist Brewing. If you've never been to Rhinegeist Brewing, it is truly one of my favorite breweries in the country. It's a great brewery, hands down anyway, but then some of the beers they have are fantastic. On my Untapped score for this one, it is a 5 out of 5, and I'm really particular on my beers on there because I don't want to, every beer could be a 5 if you truly think about it and be like, okay, yeah, I love this one, I love that one, I love that one. I try to be very particular. I usually, if I'm giving you a 5, you are one of the best beers I've ever had, and Truth is no exception. I've actually, the 12-pack they brought, I think I only have 2 left, and I basically started drinking 3 days ago. So, yeah, Truth, fantastic beer from Rhinegeist Brewing. Definitely get it. And definitely go there if you are in the Cincinnati area. There are plenty of great breweries in Cincinnati. If you are not well aware, they do know how to drink out there. All right, with that being said, we are on to our last movie of Spoopy Season. I know this is going to release on Halloween, and it's not particularly about a holiday like Halloween. This is about 4th of July, actually, and it is I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. I Still Know What You Did Last Summer is a 7% on the tomato meter and a 29% on the popcorn meter. That is critics 7%, audience 29%. And yeah, this is one of those ones. Stick around until the end because I am going to absolutely unleash hell on this movie. It is truly one of the worst endings I've ever seen in a movie, and I've seen a ton of bad endings. So a little bit of background on this movie. It was released November 13th, 1998. It is rated R, and it is an hour and 41 minutes. It is a sequel to I Know What You Did Last Summer, which is definitely a far superior movie. And I say far superior. It's not much better, but because of this second movie, it gets a little better in my mind. That first one, of course, had Jennifer Love Hewitt. It had Freddie Prinze Jr., It also had Sarah Michelle Gellar and Ryan Phillippe. If you don't know about the first one, let me just give you a little bit of ground rules because it does continue that story. Basically, these kids were driving after a party. They run over some guy and throw his body into the water to try to hide it so that they don't get in trouble with the cops or anything like that. They think they've gotten away scot-free, and the next summer they start getting messages, I know what you did last summer. And they get it all over, and one by one, they're picked off by a fisherman. This fisherman in the first one is played by Muse Watson, and he does actually come back in the second one as well. His name is Ben. Basically, was still alive, even though they thought they had killed him, and was just getting revenge for the fact that none of them claimed responsibility or took responsibility. It's very much a product of its time, this movie, I Know What You Did Last Summer, and tenfold for I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, which came out the year after. They definitely rushed this. And at the very end of I Know What You Did Last Summer, they set up the sequel. So I Still Know What You Did Last Summer was directed by Danny Cannon. Danny Cannon is known for directing a lot of TV shows, really, a couple episodes here or there and that kind of thing. The big movies he did were this one and Judge Dredd. That's the one with Sylvester Stallone and not the one with Carl Urban. So Danny Cannon has also been nominated for a bunch of awards. All of the awards he's been nominated for are Best Producer or Director for CSI, the original CSI. And a lot of those are also shared with a bunch of people as well. So Danny Cannon, a lot of TV under his belt, not really a lot of movies, but that's okay. And then the writers given credit, one of them is Lois Duncan. She is the original writer of the book series that I Know What You Did Last Summer movies are based on. She wrote I Know What You Did Last Summer, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, and of course, I Always Will Know What You Did Last Summer. Unfortunately, she passed in 2016, but she is still credited for these movies as well as the I Know What You Did Last Summer TV series from 2021. The other writer is Trey Calloway, which is more the Hollywood side that adapted the books into a screenplay. Trey Calloway is definitely another big TV person. Has written a lot of TV shows, and this is really the only big movie that he has to his name for writing. I Still Know What You Did Last Summer was nominated for a couple awards, and it actually won a couple as well, including the Blockbuster Entertainment Awards, Favorite Actress in a Horror in 1999, that is Jennifer Love Hewitt. Favorite Supporting Actor in a Horror for the Blockbuster Entertainment Award, that was Freddie Prinze Jr. Teen Choice Awards winner for Choice Actress, that is Jennifer Love Hewitt, of course. And then the fun ones, the Fangoria Chainsaw Awards, it won Worst Film, and the Stinkers Bad Movie Awards, it won Worst Sequel. So enough about the background, let's get into the details of the movie. And remember, I'm going to try to remind you of things that happened in the first movie of I Know What You Did Last Summer, just in case you forgot. I'm not going to remember everything, so hopefully you've seen that one. If you haven't, it's pretty much a paint-by-numbers slasher film. It's decent in the fact that it's a little bit of fun. There's some multiple scenes that were kind of like, they stand out and everything like that. But this one, I'm going to try to remind you what happened in the first one if it correlates with this one. So we start off the movie with Julie James, who is Jennifer Love Hewitt. She is in a church confessing her sins and basically admitting what happened, kind of relaying the events of what happened in the first movie. And of course, as she's confessing her sins, the father in the other side of the confession booth is obviously not the preacher. It is the fisherman killer in the first movie. And he reaches through, and then she wakes up, and it was all a dream, and she's in a classroom. We meet Will, who is played by Matthew Settle. His name is Will Benson. He is trying to calm Julie down, and Julie just up and leaves the class because obviously she's all kinds of messed up after her ordeal in her dream. Will follows right after her, as you do, because, just leave class if you want to. As she's walking and talking with Will, she is surprised by Ray Bronson from the first movie, who is played by Freddie Prinze Jr. And he has shown up early to surprise Julie and basically catches her talking with Will and is kind of a little jealous. It's a little weird when your girlfriend is talking to another guy solo, especially when you're living further away, back in their hometown, and she went off to college and is doing her own thing. But Will is just a friend, according to her, and it's obvious to me, it's obvious to everybody at this point, Will has feelings. So after Will breaks off, Ray and Julie are talking, and Ray is trying to convince her to come back to their hometown. But she basically says she can't. She lost her best friend there. She's too fucked up to go back to the town. She tries to convince him opposite to stay, but he has to work because he is a fisherman himself. They have a little bit of a back and forth, and he leaves angry and just kind of glad he drove all that way because now he's not going to make it anymore. He's going to go back home because, A, he has to work, and thought that she'd come with him, but they have this little lover's tiff, and you can tell there's a little bit of resentment, but at the same time, they both feel for each other. So Julie goes back to her apartment, and she falls asleep, but she is woken up by the door to their apartment closing suddenly. Her light breaks, when she turns it on, it breaks. So she grabs a knife that she has in her side table and starts wandering through the apartment to figure out who is there. There's a little jump scare behind her as she traverses the dark apartment, where it's kind of like a shadow kind of moving behind her kind of thing. and a closet in the other room is the only light, and someone is in there. Shock, she starts yelling because it's Carla. Carla is Julie's roommate. Carla Wilson is played by Brandy Norwood, or Brandy as we better know her. And she thought that Julie was gone and she just wanted to borrow a dress. She explains why she's on edge. She just didn't know. At this point, it's pretty obvious she has not told Carla what has happened. She can tell there's something there where like she kind of has these things and everything like that, but she hasn't made it abundantly clear why she's so scared. Carla at this point is trying to convince her to date Will because her and Ray, she was explaining how her and Ray got into a fight, and she's like, well, this is great. You should date Will because Will is like here for you, as well as like he's a good guy and that kind of stuff. And Julie doesn't want it. She's with Ray and everything like that. Carla also convinces her to go out to the nightclub that she works at. So Julie somehow, some way gets convinced to go. When we get to the nightclub, we meet Carla's boyfriend. Carla's boyfriend is Tyrell. Tyrell is played by Mekhi Phifer. He's kind of like he's the self-confident, a little bit cocky kind of guy, So he is Carla's boyfriend. He knows, like, he bagged a baddie kind of thing. He's very self-conscious with himself, self-confident with himself, not self-conscious, self-confident with himself, and feels like you can tell he's a cock and a walk kind of guy. And of course, also there is Will. How did he get there? Oh, I don't know. Carla didn't invite him for sure. That definitely didn't happen. Tyrell and Carla walk off to give Will and Julie some space and everything. So Julie is looking all of a sudden through the dance floor, and through the flashing lights and people dancing, she thinks she sees the fisherman. And she like walks to that area, but there's nothing there. And it's just obviously like kind of PTSD and everything. So she tells Will she needs to go. Like she just can't stay. And Will's got to be thinking it's him at this point, in my mind anyway. So the next day, they're getting ready for the morning and everything like that, and Brandy gets a phone call from the local morning show that they listen to. And it's not just the morning show calling her or anything like that. She has a chance to win a trip for 4 to the Bahamas. All she has to do is name the capital of Brazil, which at first I thought she got wrong. And she did. And so like I was just kind of like chalking it up to the movie and just kind of being like, okay, this is stupid. Like, how do they not do the research and figure out what the capital of Brazil is if that's going to be a part of it or whatever? I will go back and say that I apologize to the movie because they did actually make it a part of it that they got the question wrong. So Julie calls Ray because obviously the people that are going to go on this getaway are Carla, Tyrell, Julie, and I said question mark because obviously it's going to be Ray, but I feel like because of reasons, it's going to end up being Will. Ray says he can't go because of work, but as he's on the phone with her, his buddy Dave, who also works at the pier, is convincing him to go. So Julie just asks him to try to get there. So Ray tries. Him and Dave get in their car, and they're going to try to get to the college before they leave for the Bahamas. Also, Dave is played by John Hawkes. John Hawkes has been in a bunch of stuff. You probably recognize him somewhere, somehow, down the road. Ray also admits to Dave that he has a ring for Julie, and even though he's acting all pissy about everything, he does have intentions of proposing to her. So they've established that the university is about 2 hours away from their hometown. So they're driving to the university, Dave and Ray. And I guess Dave is just driving him. I don't know why he's also going, because it's not like he's going to be able to go to the Bahamas. So I don't know how he got out of work if there was already a big deal that Ray was getting out of work. Whatever. I'm overthinking it as a business mind, whatever. So as they're driving to the university at night, they come across a car accident, which of course is triggering for Ray. Ray sees the car accident and sees that there's a person in the car. And so he gets out of the car, and as his heart is beating rapidly, he goes to check on the person in the car. The guy in the car is a mannequin. And when Ray realizes that, he looks back at Dave, and Dave gets gutted by the fisherman. Just grabs him by the hook, grabs the hook into him and pulls him out of the car, and basically he's done. And then he gets into the car and chases after Ray, who jumps over a guardrail and rolls violently down this hill for a while. We didn't see him die, so he may be alive, or I also included, because, it's a slasher film, he may be the killer, because we don't know exactly if he died or not. The morning after, we get to Julie and Carla, and they're waiting on Ray to show up because Julie knows that he's going to show up. He promised he was going to try. Well, he doesn't show. So they decide that, all right, fine, they'll bring Will. Because, and I quote, Carla says, "Where there's a will, there's a way." We get a little montage of them traveling. Will is scared of flying. They also have to take a boat to this hotel in the middle of the Bahamas, and Tyrell is seasick. So, it just kind of shows that the men are not really the manly men that you're expecting them to be. This is also to set up that they can only get back and forth from the island on a boat, because something tells me they're going to be stuck on the island in the Bahamas. I don't know for certain, but I just have that feeling at this point. When they get to the hotel, they meet two people. One is Derek, the dockhand, and the other is Titus. Derek, the dockhand, is played by Benjamin Brown. He seems like a very nice guy. He's kind of just the hardworking dockhand that gets the boat in, gets the boat out, that kind of thing. Titus is a big slacker with dreadlocks, and basically says if you guys want to have fun on the island, he can get you exactly what you want. Titus is everybody's favorite character, I can already tell you right now, because it's Jack Black. So Jack Black, in his first horror movie, he has dreadlocks, he's playing a guy named Titus, and of course, there's a bunch of weed jokes because he's the guy that can get you what you want. They go to check in, and the hotel clerk is a dick just to be a dick. That's all it really seems like. He's just kind of there to be a dick. And he also mentions that it's storm season, so he doesn't know why anybody in their right mind would be coming to the hotel at this point, because it's storm season. They're all locking down. There's going to be very few people on the island. There's going to be a handful of people that work at the resort, and really they're going to have the run of the place to themselves because there's going to be nobody else. This is where we also kind of, this is off to the side, but we get introduced to Estes. Estes is played by Bill Cobbs. Bill Cobbs, again, another person you definitely recognize. You've seen him in something. He's been in a bunch of stuff. He doesn't really work on the hotel or anything, but he lives on the island, and he's just kind of a part of this. Now we see Ray. Ray is in the hospital, and he has head trauma. And he also is wearing a sling on his left arm. I'm only including this because there's a part where he switches arms to his right arm at some point during the film. But he doesn't want to be in the hospital for long because he knows the fisherman's out there now. So as the doctor walks away, then we start getting the system going beep, 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 as it goes to flatline. And it's all because he ran away and jumped out the window. While the girls are getting ready for their first night at the hotel, the guys go down to the bar and they try to get a drink or two from Nancy. Nancy is played by Jennifer Esposito. Looking at some of the fun facts in the IMDb notes, Nancy was described in the script as someone who looks just like Jennifer Esposito, and lo and behold, they got her. So Jennifer Esposito is the bartender Nancy, and there's no one else there except for Nancy and the two guys because, again, it's storm season. So because there's no one else at the island, they set up at the bar karaoke, and they get Julie to sing "I Will Survive." I think this is a nod to the fact that she was one of the sole survivors of the first movie. And as she's singing the song, she gets to a part where she doesn't know the words as much, so she looks at the screen, and the screen, all of a sudden it pops up and says, "I still know what you did last summer." And so she freaks out, and she runs off back to her room, and everybody's kind of like, what's going on? What's happening? And in her room, there's a letter waiting for her. And the letter, of course, she's slowly reaching for, and she knows it's going to say, "I still know what you did last summer." She opens it up and it says "surprise." and she freaks out because Will shows up behind her with a bottle of champagne and roses. He's just trying to make her feel better. Like he's trying to do all the things to prove that he could be a good boyfriend for her, especially because Ray didn't make it, and maybe now he has a chance. And he seems like a decent guy. You know, he seems like that nice guy and everything like that. So at this point, I'm like 100% certain that it is Will. Like I'm 100% certain that it is Will. And I don't know what it is. It just felt like it in my mind because it's just what it is, you know? Obviously, I have no proof of that at this point. I just kind of felt that way, that it's going to be Will somehow, some way. Now we go off to the Derek the dockhand is working on the dock, and he gets surprised, like jump scared by Titus, Jack Black, who is going to the mainland for a party. And so he just needs him to let this boat free, and he's going to take the boat and get to the mainland for a party. And then he'll be back before the morning and before the storm starts. That's his idea. So Derek undoes it, and Titus walks away, and Derek gets killed by the fisherman. Derek is the first one to die besides Dave, and I said that on this island, the black guy died first. We are following tropes pretty much. I mean, Dave, yes, okay, fine, he technically died first, but we're nitpicking here about who died first. Derek died first on the island. And then for no reason whatsoever, also the black maid gets killed too. So I pointed out that I think this fisherman is potentially racist. If Carla or Tyrell die next, this guy is definitely like a racist piece of shit. So at the same point, Carla and Tyrell are like having a moment in the hot tub. And I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but they got 2 rooms. So Carla and Tyrell are in one room, and then Will and Julie are in the other. And Will, being the nice guy that he is, offered to sleep on the couch, that kind of thing. So Carla and Tyrell are having their moment in the hot tub, and they get disturbed by Titus. And basically, he's just trying to figure out where Derek went because the boat's no longer there. And then Will shows up, and Will just decides to hop in the hot tub with them. And mind you, there's supposed to be multiple hot tubs at this resort. Will just shows up because he's like, oh, this is my friends and everything like that. And he's just there to kind of be a cock block, you know? And this is the point of the movie where I felt like this group of people, like all of the people in this movie, all of the director, the writers, that kind of thing, they just wanted a trip to the Bahamas. And they just said, cool, we'll make a script and sell it as a sequel to I Know What You Did Last Summer, and we'll all go to the Bahamas and have a great vacation. While they're in the hot tub, Julie gets out of the shower, and she rubs the mirror. And of course, as she does that, a figure passes by behind her. And so she's kind of like, you know, things are creepy. And she thinks something is in the closet. And so she opens the door and, of course, finds a dead body in there. And the dead body is like hanging in the closet. So she goes to get help from her gang as well as the owner of the hotel, or like the supervisor of the hotel. And when they come back, there's nothing in there. They also get told at this point, because it is storm season and everything like that, there are no more boats because they can't take it out on the water. And the phone lines, they just went down a few minutes ago. Now they're stuck. They have nobody they can call. The guy also mentions that there is a radio for emergencies, but it's most likely there's not going to be an emergency that they can use. The scene flashes to Estes. Estes is in his house, and he is doing some kind of like voodoo spell, and it's just kind of showing that he's like a voodoo kind of guy. And it's definitely one of those diversion things where it's, oh, look at this guy being creepy. Yeah, he's definitely the killer, that kind of thing. You just know from the beginning he's definitely not. Titus, in his, he has a like room by the pool. He kind of is like the pool boy kind of thing. He's about to smoke like this huge bong. And as he looks up, he gets attacked by the fisherman. He's gone. So we got 3 dead bodies on this island already. On the mainland, Ray, who no longer has a car, no longer has a way to get to the university or get to the Bahamas, basically he goes to a pawn shop to pawn his engagement ring so he can get $300 in a gun because he's going to the Bahamas. He knows Julie's in trouble. So it's the next day, and it is raining, and of course, it's the start of storm season, everything like that. It's not too bad so far, but it's just kind of setting the precedence that, hey, it's going to be raining for the rest of this movie. There's going to be a dark showdown in the rain kind of thing. Our main four are looking for something to do. The guys go one way, the girls go the other. Will is annoying Tyrell, while Carla and Julie find a gym, and more specifically, a tanning booth off the gym. And so Carla convinces Julie to use the tanning booth. And I said, this is just an excuse to kind of get Jennifer Love Hewitt in her underwear. You know, like this, it definitely feels like we just want to see her show a little skin kind of thing. I also commented at this point that Julie thought she saw someone dead last night. And now you're thinking about using a tanning bed, half naked, with these headphones that you just pulled out of nowhere. You're just going to leave yourself susceptible to whatever may happen. Cool. Good idea. So Julie puts in her headphones and gets into the tanning booth and is on her own. Kayla walks away and she starts hearing the laundry dryer like going crazy. And she thinks like, oh, there was a bit before where their dryer was going crazy because she put shoes in it. So she's like, I wonder how many shoes are in there. And so she like goes to the dryer, opens it up. And when she opens it up, she screams because the maid's body is in there. Tyrell and Will are like exploring around and they go in the pool house, and that's where they see Titus dead. And of course, the fisherman shows up behind Julie in the tanning booth, and instead of just like, you know, killing her with a hook or whatever while she's unsuspecting, the fisherman instead turns up the temp and zip ties her in the tanning bed. So she's zip tied in, the temperature is turned up, everything like that. And you might be thinking to yourself, oh, I've seen this before. This was in Final Destination 3. You're wrong. This movie was first, so it gets all the credit. There you go. So Final Destination 3 is just a ripoff of I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. So, you know what? Congratulations, Trey Calloway. You did it. You came up with a tanning bed scene first. Carla is locked in the laundry, so she can't really get out. And so both girls are screaming, and the guys hear it, and they come to save the day. So the guys first get Carla out of the laundry room by just like slamming the door and everything like that. And then they're able to find Julie in the tanning bed, and they're able to break the zip tie so that she can get out of there. So our four are still saved. Now they know they need to go find the radio. This is the excuse. They need to go find the radio. So they go to the front desk, and the front desk guy, yeah, he gone. The manager, done. And there's a bloody message on the wall written in the manager's blood that says, I still know. And these guys are kind of wondering, like, what does he still know? Why is this happening? That kind of thing. So Julie tells them all about the killings from last year and, like, what happened and everything like that. All right, now it seems like as good a time as any to tell you all about the podcast that guessed it correctly first, the Bad Movie, of course. We have a guessing game for each bad movie we do. Give you a couple clues in gifts that may or may not be from the bad movie itself. This time it is, again, our friend Josh from the Your Next Favorite Movie podcast. He got Godsend earlier this month, and it's just that easy. He was the first one to guess it. If you want to guess it and you want to get a shout out, all you have to do is play along, guess it first, and I'm happy to give you a shout out or play your ad in this episode. Your Next Favorite Movie podcast is found at YNF Movie Pod on X/Twitter/ whatever the fuck we're calling it. So Josh, congratulations for once again getting the bad movie correct first. So now everybody's in the know about the killings and everything like that, and they think they know who is the guy. They think it's Estes. So they go to try to attack him before he can get to them. This also shows that Ray is now on a bus. And I said, Ray is on a bus to the Bahamas. Like, I know it was 1998. $300, I don't know if it's going to get you a bus ticket and a plane ticket and somehow a boat to get to the Bahamas. And that's all he traded the engagement ring for. $300 and a gun. So somehow, some way, taking a bus and a boat and a plane or whatever, he's going to get to the Bahamas to save the day, right? We all know that's going to happen, right? One beer down, another beer to go. Let's finish this movie. Our group is at Estes' place, and they find things that they have been missing, and it's like at a shrine-like thing. A couple things that have just like disappeared from them. So like, I don't remember the exact things, but like a hair scrunchie would be missing or something like that. Something particular to these people have been missing, and it is at this shrine at Estes' place. So everything's starting to look like it's got to be Estes. He's got to be the one that's doing this. So they leave his spot and they go back to the main hotel and they find weapons to defend themselves. As they get these weapons, all of a sudden the power goes out. Along with the power going out, Estes pops up out of nowhere and he tells them and alerts them that the capital of Brazil is not Rio, as they had guessed for this contest. It is Brasilia. And so now they know that they were set up. Like, how did they get this wrong? But they still won the contest to go to the Bahamas. Now they know it's got to be the fishermen setting them up. He also admits that he stole some of their stuff to do a voodoo like protection thing. He wants to protect them. He doesn't want to appear like the bad guy. As he's having this conversation, like I pointed out, I know it's raining and everything, but like this entire movie, they just had Jennifer Love Hewitt's hair like always wet. It always feels like it's, even if they've been inside for hours, it feels wet. We now see Ray has gotten to the boat captain and is telling him that he wants to get to the island. And the boat captain's just like, nah, no fucking way. I'm not going out there. What do you think this is? That kind of thing. It's a freaking storm. That kind of thing. Ray then uses the gun and holds him at gunpoint to get to the island. Back on the island, Estes takes them to a graveyard and shows them the graves of Sarah and Ben Willis, and basically reveals the lore that Sarah and Ben used to work on the island themselves. So this is kind of how they're connected to this Bahama Island kind of thing. And dug next to their graves is one marked Julie James with the date July 4th, 1998, and then a hole in the ground. Dug for, presumably, Julie when Ben gets his revenge, that kind of thing. And this leads to the second best screaming to the heavens scene in this series. Julie once again screams to the heavens about like, bring it on, I'm right here kind of thing. And as she's doing this, there's a like thunder strike and Estes disappears. And Will goes to run after him to find him. And this, again, I said it before and I'll say it again, just feels like Estes is going to show up dead and Will is going to be the one who did it. It's fucking Will. Will catches up to Estes, who is putting a boat in the water, which is a rowboat. It's not like a real like boat. And he's holding an oar. And as Will gets there, he knocks Will out. This is the first time I started to question myself. And mind you, question, not really. I still think it's Will. But that Estes knocked him out, I'm kind of like, okay, maybe it's not him. Who knows? The others go back to the main building and they start grabbing knives and they start looking for the fisherman. They know he's somewhere in the hotel. They're going to find him. Nancy is still alive and thinking that Tyrell is the killer, she hits him in the face with like a pan. Nancy like apologizes. They're having this whole conversation, everything like that. And Nancy's also freaked out, but like Tyrell still hasn't seen anybody. He's seen these bodies, but he hasn't seen anybody. So he's just like frustrated. So he just lashes out and is like, I'm tired, I'm hungry, and personally, I haven't seen one psycho killer. And then, of course, right behind, like right above him, the fisherman pops down and starts strangling him with a wire. So now it's only the girls left in the hotel. We know that Will's been knocked out. Estes is gone. Tyrell, we assume, has been strangled to death. So it's only Carla, Julie, and Nancy that are trying to get away. So they climb into the attic after being chased by the fisherman after he finishes Tyrell off. And so they go into the attic, they get away from the fisherman, and he doesn't have any clue where they are. So they're just quietly trying to like cut across this beam in the attic so they don't fall through the ceiling. And so they can get to the other side of the room without the fisherman being aware of their spot. This is also a big deal because it is above their rooms that this attic is, and that he could see into their rooms. So like they've learned that he's basically been watching them this entire time. Like he can see both of their bedrooms. He knows when they're in the room, when they're not, that kind of thing. Carla misses the beam and falls through the ceiling and gets knocked into the bedroom with the killer. Nancy is trying to convince Julie to keep going and leave Carla. And Carla has, at this point, run through a window and jumped out of it to land on a greenhouse where she subsequently fell through the glass. And now she's in the greenhouse. And Julie, instead of like trying to escape, decides she's going to go back and try to help Carla. Both Nancy and Julie get to the greenhouse, and the greenhouse is locked on the side they're at, but they can see in, obviously, because it is a greenhouse. And so they're trying to open the door and then realize that the fisherman is behind Carla, like slowly walking towards her. Julie, getting very pissed off that the door is locked, she like grabs an axe from the fire, like a fire axe. She grabs a fire axe and smashes through the window and starts getting Carla out. As Carla is escaping, her foot gets hit by the hook. And this is the same hook, by the way, that sunk into easily and grabbed the maid and killed her in like one fell swoop. This like gets her leg, but just kind of, it's a flesh wound kind of thing. It doesn't actually like, tear off her foot or anything like that. So now they've ended up in like this maintenance room, escaping from the fishermen and everything. And as they turn on the light in the maintenance room, they realize all of the dead bodies are there, like every single one. And so they want to scream, but of course they can't because the fishermen will then know where they are. And so they're like freaking out. And then Will suddenly enters behind them and explains how Estes attacked him. They get back into like the main hotel, and Carla and Nancy go to find a first aid kit to like patch up Carla's foot. Will is like covered in blood, but Julie realizes there's no real wound. Like she sees that he's covered in blood, but there's like no wound anywhere on him. And so she starts realizing, this Will is a part of this. So Will now has Julie like is grabbing her and dragging her to the woods. And Nancy and Carla, while looking for the first aid kit, they come across Estes, and it's one of those like open the door and Estes is there, and it's like, oh God. And then Estes falls onto Nancy, and Estes is dead. Because Estes is on top of her, Nancy can't really escape, and the fisherman comes in and kills Nancy. So the fisherman from the first movie is Ben Willis. I told you at the beginning, I've been giving you full names, so like Julie James, Ray Bronson, not Brandy Norwood, that's the actress, sorry, Carla Wilson, that kind of thing, and our friend Will Benson. Why is his name Benson and not Willis, you might say? Because he thought he was so clever and his last name is Benson, or Ben's son. Ben's son. And so Ben is still alive, and his son is Will. This right here might have done it. This is the moment. Like this is the moment in this podcast that I knew I was getting to. I've watched a ton of bad movies for this podcast, an absolute ton. And some of them are absolutely terrible. Some of them have terrible writing. And this is not the worst one on the list by far. However, this is the part that broke me. I have been mad for days. I'm not joking you. Days about stupid fucking Benson. I am still absolutely fuming. Like I am white knuckled because my fists are so tight about this stupid revelation that he is Ben's son. And that is why his last name is Benson. This is fucking dumb. Absolutely the stupidest thing ever. And like I always knew it was Will anyway, so that doesn't bug me. If it was Will, fine, whatever. Like yeah, it was predictable, whatever. The fact that they think they are so smart writing this in, that they think they are smarter than the audience and had this right in front of your nose the whole time. Oh, his name is Will Benson because he's Ben's son. fuck these writers. Absolutely fuck them. And I know I already told you the person who wrote these books. I don't know if it's in the book or not. I know I told you that she's dead, so she gets a pass for now. Trey Calloway, the guy who wrote the screenplay for this, fuck you. Absolutely fuck you. This is the dumbest thing ever. I was so pissed, and I'm fuming. I'm angry. I'm seeing red because of this moment. It's one thing to be predictable. It's one thing. But then to be predictable and still think you are so smart with this little twist that you had and everything like that, that you got Ben's son. I can't. I literally can't. This part of the movie broke me. And again, this is not the worst movie I've seen. I have seen far worse that have just from the beginning to the end been absolute trash. But this is the moment. I knew there was going to be a movie somewhere along the line where the end was going to be so dumb that it absolutely broke me. And congratulations, I still know what you did last summer. You did it. You are the ones that did it. We've got a little bit left of this movie. I promise I'll get probably more on this rampage because I'm still mad about this. Let's take a deep breath and talk about the fact that now Ben Willis and Will Willis, because we don't know if his name's actually Will Willis or not. Ben Willis and Will Willis are now your two killers. And wouldn't you know it, they're like playing with their food with Julie, and all of a sudden Ray shows up last minute with a gun. But the gun jams. As soon as he tries to fire any shots, the gun jams. So he just runs full sprint at Will while Julie bites Ben's hand to get out of his grasp. Will kind of gets a drop on Ray and like holds him for Ben to kill. But at the last second, Ray hits Will and like runs away, leaving Ben to accidentally hit Will and send him out of commission. So yes, his own dad sends Will out of commission. Angry at Ray now, Ben like leaves his guard down, and Julie is able to unload like a full round into Ben with the gun. And by a full round, she has a revolver and she fires 9 shots. 8 shots that connect and 1 like empty blank shot. And I said a revolver. That is correct. It's supposed to have 6 shots. She fires 9 shots. 8 that hit and 1 that's supposed to be a blank so she can stop firing. Ben, of course, then falls into the grave that's marked for Julie. That's it. The day is saved. Ben's dead. He killed his son, Will. Ben's son. And Carla somehow survives, and the Coast Guard arrives perfectly after the events of the night. The sky is now sunny. There's no problem anymore. Storm season's just done. And so it goes to another epilogue. And Ray and Julie now live together in a new house. And so, like, Julie's, like, in the house, kind of, like, you know, just happy to be alive kind of thing. Ray is brushing his teeth with a electric toothbrush. And the only reason I have this is because, like, he at one point holds it out of his mouth and goes, "I love this thing." Just cuss. I don't know. Julie starts wandering around the house because she feels uncomfortable all of a sudden. And she just thinks maybe it's in her head. So she sits back on the bed and she looks towards the mirror that they have in the room, and she sees that Ben is under the bed, who grabs her legs and drags her under. And that's the end. That's the end of I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. I've already started my rant about the thing I absolutely hate, and I'm probably going to get back to it, but let's go through the things first about this movie. It's not a good sequel, especially compared to the first movie. And again, the first movie's kind of meh. In general, I enjoy it. There's some fun moments, that kind of thing. There's definitely not as much fun in this movie. You know, you could tell they tried, but there's just not as much fun in this. Some of the things just come across too heavy-handed. Like, even though I love Titus, you know, his character was just, oh, he's a pothead and like a slacker. That's it. You know, that kind of thing. Tyrell's kind of like the self-confident, like, cocky, condescending sex fiend that just wants to get it in, you know, that kind of thing. Carla was just the friend. Will was like obvious, like such a nice guy that you knew something was up with him. Estes was the creepy guy on the outside where they're just trying to build him up as a suspect, but he's not really a suspect, and they just kind of make him do voodoo just because he's going to do voodoo. That's the thing. It's a whole movie of stereotypes, and it also was revealed at one point about the whole morning show and everything. It should be obvious. They didn't call in. The morning show called them. And the fact that they guessed Rio and got it wrong, but still won the trip. I mean, I guess when you get a question right, you don't look it up again, but I would have probably tried to figure it out. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But yeah, overall, this movie it's dated way from the beginning. Like it was never going to be rewatchable because of how dated it is. One of the things I didn't even mention in this, so the entire movie basically is just Ray trying to get there, and it's just like one-off scenes and everything. So it feels very much like he was filming other things and was just kind of there to be in a couple scenes here or there. So at that same time, there really wasn't anything else he was like working on. He was in a TV movie that same year, and he was in a movie like at the same time in 1997 with I Know What You Did Last Summer. It just kind of feels like he was an afterthought. Like they just wanted to get him out of the picture. And so the entire time he's just in little scenes here or there that must have taken, I don't know, like a day or two to record or to like film, where he's like on a bus, he's on the boat, he's threatening the boat captain. It's these like 2-3 minute scenes the entire movie that just to give him a story arc kind of thing to get to the Bahamas. And I can't imagine it took him more than like a week to film this thing. Mind you, this movie was released a year and a month after the first one was released. So either they already had plans and were already filming it, or they put this one together really last second. And because of his schedule or whatever, they just put him in these little scenes to kind of like get him as part of the story, but also he didn't have to be there with the rest of the crew or whatever. So it felt very weird with Freddie Prinze Jr.'s character of Ray. It felt like he was just like an afterthought for pretty much the entirety of the movie. It was definitely our 4 characters that we were following the whole time. Those were definitely the 4 with the most screen time, that kind of thing. The kills were basic. There's some that were a little more like, oh, wow, okay, that was a little gruesome, but not much for the most part. They didn't do anything very original. It was either they got killed by a fish hook, or there was like one other one I can't even remember. That's how little it stuck out to me. But basically, it was fish hook kills. Especially when I watch horror movies with a slasher, I kind of like the idea of more crazy kills. I know that saying that as a big fan of the Scream series, where everybody basically gets it by a knife. I like when killers get creative. I like that in movies. I like that fun kind of thing where I rate those kills better because they thought of something to make it stand out more. Obviously, my biggest problem with the film is Ben's son. It just absolutely was. It was meaningless, truthfully. I mean, you could have just had him be his son. You didn't have to have him thinking he's so smart and going, yeah, my name is Will Benson, get it? That kind of thing. And thinking he's so clever and everything like that. That was just awful. It totally killed the momentum of the movie, which it didn't have much to go with at the beginning anyway. These movies are a trilogy. Don't watch I Always Will Remember What You Did Last Summer. Don't watch I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, because you'll just be frustrated at the end. And even the first one, like, it's not bad. It's definitely like, if you're looking for a trilogy to watch during the Halloween season, or, as these movies are, a 4th of July trilogy, definitely avoid these ones. I would say the first one is good for a watch or two. Like, I haven't rewatched it much since watching it the first time. I've watched it maybe once or twice more. This one, definitely not going to be another one I rewatch. So yeah, it's this failed as a sequel in every way. It didn't give the characters anything more compelling to do. It didn't make them any more fun. And truthfully, it lost a lot because of some of the gimmicks it pulled and that kind of thing. So yeah, I can't say much more about this. So, time to give it a rating. Before the reveal of Benson, I would say this movie is 1 out of 5 fishhooks. After the reveal of Benson, I think I have to. I think it's a 0.25 fishhooks out of 5. I really do. I think it killed it that much. I think it had no momentum going in anyway, but at least like it was okay. You know, like there, I don't know. It was. I feel like I'm being generous on the 1. I'm not being disgenerous on the 0.25. I feel like it definitely deserves that or lower. It may deserve an actual 0 because of that. The movie itself, as far as bad movies go, it's not going to be the worst I've watched. It's not going to be the best I've watched. It's definitely right in that middle ground, maybe leaning more towards the worst side. The twist at the end with the Benson just pissed me off so much. I'm literally a week after and I'm still fuming. That's how bad that got me. So yeah, a 0.25 out of 5 fish hooks or Bensons. Thank you guys very much for tuning in to the Game for a Movie podcast, where we ask, are you game for a movie? As well as specifically the spoopy season 4 episodes. Check out all of those episodes as well as any of the other ones. Obviously, we watch a ton of bad movies. And I have 2 more coming out in November. I'm hoping to get back to my schedule of once every other week. I have a bad Thanksgiving movie coming out. You can follow us on social medias at Game for a Movie everywhere pretty much. If you want to get involved, we have a newsletter that comes out for every new episode, as well as I try to release one once per month about some kind of movie theme. It's always about movies all the time, that kind of thing. If you'd like to get on that, please message me at Game for a Movie on X/Twitter/whatever the fuck we're calling it. And I will be happy to sign you up for the newsletter. And thank you guys very much for listening to these episodes, as well as always listening to us, Game for a Movie podcast, where we ask, are you game for a movie? I've been your host, Mike. I will see you next time. Bye.